The sanctuary of the Power Kingdom Church hummed with the soft sound of post-service fellowship. For Mark and Tori, this building was as familiar as their own homes. They had run through these aisles as toddlers and now served in these pews as young adults. Tori, a dedicated second-year student working toward her BSc in microbiology, was often found near the front, organizing the hymnals or speaking with the youth. Mark, currently facing the intense pressure of his final year in mechanical engineering, admired her discipline. They were friends, bound by shared childhood memories and a deep, unwavering commitment to their faith. They both believed that love wasn't just about emotion, it was about divine alignment. One Tuesday night, Mark closed his engineering textbooks, his mind weary from thermodynamics and fluid mechanics. He knelt by his bed, as he did every night, and poured his heart out in prayer. He prayed for his upcoming exams, for his family, and for clarity on his future. A peace settled over him, and he drifted into a deep sleep. In the quiet hours of the morning, the atmosphere in his room shifted. In his dream, a brilliant light, softer than the sun but far more piercing, filled his vision. An angel of the Lord stood before him, exuding an authority that made Mark's spirit tremble. The angel spoke, his voice like rushing waters yet comforting. "Mark, your prayers have been heard. Do not be afraid." The figure pointed toward a horizon in the dream, where a silhouette stood. "Tori shall be your wife. I have set her apart for you, for I want both of you to do my work together." Mark woke up with a gasp, his heart hammering against his ribs. He sat up in the darkness, clutching his blanket. The room was silent, but the presence of the dream lingered heavy in the air. He rubbed his face, panic rising in his chest. "Is this my mind?" he whispered to the empty room. "Is this just me projecting feelings? Or is it really the Lord?" For days, Mark walked around campus in a daze. When he saw Tori in the library, her nose buried in a textbook on microbial genetics, he felt a sudden wave of nervousness he had never felt before. He tried to dismiss the dream as the product of a tired, stressed brain. But God was persistent. A few weeks later, exhaustion claimed Mark again. No sooner had his eyes closed than the vision returned. This time, there were no words, only a scene of vivid clarity. He saw himself standing at an altar. He looked down to see his hands holding another pair of hands, smaller, delicate, yet strong. He looked up and saw Tori, dressed in white, her face radiating a joy that wasn't just earthly happiness, but spiritual peace. It was a vision of their wedding day. The reality of the vision shook him to his core. It wasn't a hazy dream, it felt like a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. Over the next few months, the confirmations became relentless. It wasn't just night visions anymore. During sermons at the Power Kingdom, the pastor would preach on kingdom couples just as Mark made eye contact with Tori. When he prayed for his future wife, Tori's face would interrupt his thoughts with stubborn persistence. The angel's instruction echoed in his spirit, "Do my work together." Mark realized this wasn't just about romance, it was an assignment. Now, sitting in the university cafeteria, Mark watched Tori across the room. She was laughing with a friend, unaware of the divine mandate hanging over her life. Mark gripped his coffee cup, a new kind of anxiety taking root. He was an engineer, he understood logic, gears, and physics. He knew how to build engines, not how to tell a focused microbiology student that an angel had visited him. He knew the truth, but the path to it seemed impossible. How could he walk up to her and say, "God told me you're my wife"? The service at the Power Kingdom had ended on a high note, the choir's final, "Amen," still echoing in the rafters. The congregation spilled out into the warm afternoon sun, exchanging greetings and laughter. But for Mark, the bright sunlight felt like a spotlight he wasn't ready for. His palms were sweating. He spotted Tori near the entrance, holding her Bible against her chest, chatting with one of the deaconesses. She looked peaceful, completely unaware that her world was about to tilt on its axis. Mark took a deep breath, reciting the angel's promise in his mind, and walked over. "Hi, Tori," Mark said, his voice tighter than he intended. Tori turned, offering her usual bright, sisterly smile. "Hey, Mark. That sermon was powerful, wasn't it? The part about divine timing really hit me." "Yeah, divine timing," Mark repeated, seizing the opening. "Actually, Tori, can I speak to you for a moment? Just over there, away from the crowd." Tori frowned slightly, sensing the shift in his demeanor, but she nodded. They moved to the shade of a large oak tree near the parking lot. Mark looked at her, his friend, his study partner, the woman he had laughed with 100 times. "Mark, is everything okay? You look pale," she said, concern etching her brow. "I'm okay," Mark said, his heart hammering against his ribs. He looked her in the eye, deciding there was no soft way to say it. "Tori, I've been praying a lot lately. And God visited me. He gave me a vision." Tori's expression remained open, expecting a testimony about his studies or family. "He told me about us," Mark continued, his voice trembling but firm. "God told me that you are my wife, Tori." The air between them seemed to vanish. Tori's eyes went wide. Her heart slammed against her chest so hard she thought Mark could hear it. "Wife? Mark?" The words didn't make sense. Mark was her friend. He was a safe, platonic brother in Christ. He was the guy she asked for help with car trouble, not this. What?" she stammered, stepping back. "I know it's sudden," Mark said, reaching a hand out slightly, but the angel was clear. "No," Tori gasped. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded her veins. It felt like a violation of their friendship, a misunderstanding of epic proportions. "Mark, I can't. We're just friends. I have to go." "Tori, wait." But she didn't wait. She turned on her heel, clutching her Bible like a shield, and practically ran toward her car. She didn't look back. Mark was left standing alone in the shade of the oak tree. The joy of the Sunday service evaporated, replaced by a hollow, sinking feeling in his gut. He watched her car peel out of the parking lot. He looked up at the sky, his eyes burning. "God, is it really you who told me? Or is it just my mind?" he whispered, the doubt creeping in like a fog. "Why would you show me a wedding if she was going to run away?" That evening, the silence in Tori's room was deafening. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the glow of the streetlights painting shadows on her walls. She was exhausted, but sleep was miles away. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the intensity in Mark's gaze. Her body was betraying her. Her stomach fluttered with a nervous energy that wouldn't settle, and her heart continued a heavy, rhythmic pounding that echoed in her ears. For the next 3 weeks, Tori became a master of evasion. If she saw Mark entering the university library, she would duck behind the stacks of biology journals and slip out the back exit. On Sundays at the Power Kingdom, she arrived late and sat in the overflow room, leaving before the final benediction to avoid the post-service fellowship. She didn't reply to his text messages, which were polite and sparse, simply asking how she was. She wasn't running out of hatred, she was running out of fear. Mark was a good man, a great man, but the weight of "God told me you're my wife" was too heavy for her heart to carry without her own conviction. Desperate for clarity, Tori decided to go on a spiritual offensive. She committed to a 30-day fast. She cut out all social media, skipped lunches, and spent her evenings in prayer. Her petition was simple: "Lord, if this is not you, remove this man from my spirit. But if it is you, you must show me. I cannot move on Mark's word alone, I need yours." During those 30 days of solitude and hunger, God answered her with confirmations. The final night of the fast arrived. Tori went to bed feeling lighter than she had in years. That night, the dream came. The setting was a golden meadow, bathed in a light that felt like pure love. Tori looked down and saw that her hand was clasped firmly in Mark's. His grip was warm and reassuring. They were walking forward, laughing at a private joke, their strides perfectly in sync. Ahead of them, running through the tall grass, were 2 children, a boy and a girl. The children were giggling, chasing butterflies, looking back occasionally to wave at them. In the dream, Tori felt a sense of completeness so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She squeezed Mark's hand, and he squeezed back. Tori woke up with a gasp, the morning sun streaming through her blinds. The joy from the dream was still coursing through her veins. It wasn't just a dream, it was a glimpse of a promise. "Okay, Lord," she whispered, wiping tears from her eyes. "I hear you." She knew what she had to do. She couldn't text this. She needed spiritual counsel. She needed to tell Pastor John. She dressed quickly, her hands shaking not from fear but from anticipation. She drove to the pastor's house, rehearsing what she would say. "Pastor, God gave me a dream. I think Mark was right." She pulled into the driveway and hurried to the door. Pastor John's wife, Mama Sarah, opened the door with a knowing smile. "Tori. Come in, child," she said, ushering her into the hallway. "I need to speak to Pastor John," Tori said breathlessly. "It's urgent. It's about a dream I had." "He's in the lounge," Mama Sarah said, pointing. Tori walked into the lounge, her heart full of her confession. She stopped dead in her tracks. Sitting on the beige sofa, a cup of tea untouched on the table before him, was Mark. He looked up as she entered, his eyes widening in shock. Pastor John sat back in his armchair, a deep, knowing smile spreading across his face as he looked at the two young people sitting on opposite ends of his sofa. The tension in the room wasn't fear anymore, it was the electric charge of a miracle being realized. "Children," Pastor John began, his voice warm and steady. "In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. That is biblical law. But what you have experienced here, this is what we call divine synchronization." He leaned forward, clasping his hands. For one person to have a dream is guidance. For 2 people to have the exact same dream, on the exact same night, is confirmation. But for both of you to be moved by the Spirit to come to my house at the exact same time to share it, that is orchestration. He looked at Tori, whose eyes were filled with tears of awe. "Tori, you asked God for a sign because you didn't want to move on Mark's emotion. God respected your heart so much that He didn't just give you a sign, He gave you Mark's vision. He downloaded the same file into both of your spirits to show you that you are already connected in the spirit realm." Mark looked at Tori, his eyes soft. "I didn't want to rush you, Tori." "You didn't," Tori whispered, a smile breaking through her tears. "God did." Mark shifted on the couch, turning his body fully toward her. He took a deep breath, his engineering mind now aligned with his spiritual heart. "Tori, I know you still have studies to finish. I know you have goals. I am not asking you to pause your life. I am asking to walk beside you while you build it." He reached out and gently took her hand. "I will wait for you to finish your studies," Mark promised, his voice unwavering. "Focus on your degree. I will focus on building a foundation for us." And Mark kept his word. The next year was a flurry of hard work and quiet devotion. While Tori spent late nights in the lab peering through microscopes and the agar plates, Mark was buried in blueprints and calculations. He graduated at the top of his class with a BSc honors degree in mechanical engineering. His diligence paid off immediately. He was snapped up by a popular, industry-leading engineering company. But Mark didn't spend his new salary on flashy cars or expensive trips. He had a mission. Every month, a significant portion of his paycheck went into a savings account labeled Future. He was saving for the Lobola, bride price, and a wedding worthy of the woman God had shown him in his dreams. When Tori finally completed her own academic year, Mark was ready. In the quiet sanctuary of Pastor John's office, with the man of God as their witness, Mark asked Tori to officially enter a courtship leading to marriage. It was a holy engagement, grounded in prayer. Then came the day the vision became reality. The church was packed to the rafters. Flowers cascaded down the altar, and the air was thick with excitement. Mark stood at the front, looking dashing in a tailored suit, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from overwhelming gratitude. When the doors opened and Tori appeared, the congregation gasped. She was radiant, walking toward him not just as a bride, but as the woman he had seen in the spirit months ago. They stood before Pastor John, their hands joined. "Do you, Tori, take Mark to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Pastor John asked, his voice booming with joy. Tori looked into Mark's eyes, seeing the patience, the love, and the God who brought them together reflected there. "I do," she said, her voice clear and sure. Mark took the gold band, a circle with no beginning and no end, and slid it onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. "By the power vested in me," Pastor John declared, raising his hand high, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Mark leaned in, cupping Tori's face gently, and kissed her. The church erupted. The sound of thunderous applause mixed with the high-pitched, joyous sound of women ululating filled the sanctuary. Drums beat, people danced in the aisles, and laughter rang out. It was a celebration not just of a wedding but of a promise kept. As they walked down the aisle, hand in hand, just like in their dream, Mark and Tori knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of a happy, godly marriage, built on a rock that would never be shaken.